Everyone, welcome to this roundtable discussion. We were motivated by some of the other people out there who are having these, I would say, high vibration discussions about what's going on right now and how we could help each other to soar in this this time of difficult challenges. So we have a few discussion points, and I think it's going to be really free flowing. I know these beautiful women here, and I'm so excited to have them together with me to discuss what's going on. So just a quick introduction to myself. I'm Lianne Bridges, and I am a author and speaker and transformation coach and the founder of Designing Transformation. And that's enough about me. So let's get to the juicy stuff. So, and we're just gonna kind of whoever wants to talk. The first kind of conversation would be cool to be around what is going on right now. Over the last few months, we've seen, COVID, and then we've seen lockdown, we've seen the planet changes, we've seen strife, riots, all sorts of things happening. So anybody wants to kind of throw in what your perspective of what's happening from maybe a broader perspective than just a series of seemingly unfortunate scary.
Sure. I don't mind jumping right in. Hi, I'm Sherry. I'm also an author, a speaker, and a relationship coach. I marry people, I work with people, but I'm really excited to work with women 50s and beyond, because I think we can be the wise women of the younger women coming up behind us. So
yes.
I'm pretty excited about that. And what this time reminds me of is the book Celestine Prophecy. I don't know, how many people have read that out there, but hopefully many, because it's a pretty phenomenal book. And its premise was about, it talked about it, even though it was sort of fictional, it was talking about the light and the dark, that there would be these two camps in the world, and that it was eventually going to come to some deciding point. And, who would win kind of thing, is it the light or the dark? And the prophecy was that the light, of course, always wins, because light and love is a much stronger energy force. So, this whole time has been reminding me of that, the Celestine Prophecy, and I think there was the 10th insight, where they really got into, how the two camps were kind of squaring off. So that's how I see this. That's how I see this time. It was time that we kind of wake up, and it's like, pick a side, get off the fence. Are you good or are you bad? So let's go. So that's my take on it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Who else wants to kind of go in?
Well, I feel like we as a society have been on a hamster wheel. Going, moving, can't take a breath, don't have time, I work, so I'm a holistic naturopath. I work with women, and I help them for real self-care and self-love. And a lot of women came and said, I don't have time to really take care of myself. And I'm like, yikes. Yeah. And that really told me a lot about the hamster wheel that we were on. And I think this is a great time of pause. Mm-hmm. A great time of pause. I think it was so much needed. And I think the time was needed mostly to go within. And so much of our life has been dictated by what's out there, by what we're told from our parents, from society, from the media. And this has been a great time to really take that time for self-love, self-care, and to go in and really tap into what is the deeper truth of me, within me, within me. And is it okay to really take the time and look there? Because I think, and I speak mostly with women, so I hear a lot of the feedback from women. And it's like, well, if you focus on yourself too much, you're selfish, right? Of the generations that came before. And now it's like, we can't afford not to, right? And it's so important to do a reset. And what are we teaching our young daughters about that, right? put everybody else, first at the expense of yourself. And that is not a healthy message. And I think the younger generation, I see them, and to some of us, they look selfish. My husband was working at Bell 37 years, and he said, these young kids come in, they work 5 years, they don't like the environment, they leave, and they're so selfish. And maybe they're not so selfish. Maybe they're waking up and they're saying, you know what? I'm taking care of me and my needs. And I noticed that if we flourish, everybody else around us flourishes. And especially the women were like the hubs of the family, right? So I think this has been a giant reset of reflection and of discovering what is truly important that I could put my energy into, and what isn't important that I've been putting my energy into, and what work have I been doing in the world, and is it nourishing me or is it depleting me because I have to go to work and put bread on the table, right? So really reflecting on what's important and what nourishes me as a human being, and then going bigger as a community, as a society, and so that's what I feel. It's been a big time of pause. Yay.
Thank you. Awesome. Doris, do you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Sharon in that we needed to have this big pause. I mean, this nature, well, the world has been, as you said, going round and round, and there's been so many catastrophes and so many people, there's been so much division, and I think it's almost like, stop the world, I want to get off. And I want to get off from the life that we've created and start another life. And I think we were crying out for healing in the world. And it's what it gave us. It needed to heal. We needed the pause in order for everything to just stop. And people talking about pollution and CO2 in the air and all that, so everything stopped. Okay, so, and because people, we can't stop it because we can't do this, we can't stop the floods. Well, listen, this is what this has done for us. It stopped everything. It's going to take that deep breath. It's that pause, as you said, Sharon, it's that pause that we take. Okay, where do we go from here? Reset, start at zero again, and do it better this time than what we did last time. Learn from what we've done. People go back to normal. I don't believe that's not normal, what we were living. What's normal anyway? Something might be normal to me and totally crazy to you. And again, the secret is accepting that my normal is different to your normal. And it's really just, I think when we live in nature, with harmony with nature, things just come together, and nature needed everybody to just stop so it can heal itself and regenerate and change the way we're thinking about things.
Oh, really beautiful. Thank you all. Wow. Such a big topic. And I think we could probably talk here for hours. I know for me, I resonate with what you're all saying. And what I might add is that, I'm a big proponent of law of attraction. That there's actually a law there in the universe that what we focus on manifests. And in other words, if we're really unhappy with something, even though we might be saying we want clean air, but we're focusing on how filthy it is, we're sending out, kind of like in Abraham Hicks terms, a rocket of desire for clean air, even though we're focusing on the negative. And if we can let go of the resistance by taking our mind away for a moment from the problem, even if we don't think of the solution, we just get rid of the problem, thinking of the problem, all of a sudden there's a pause there, and then the solution can come for us. So if you imagine, for example, that just one thing, the world was talking so much about climate change and wanting, healing the planet. So whether it was climate change, you believe it or not, I think most people would agree that we have been doing some nasty things to the planet. And most people have had a great desire to see a healthy planet. So if you just think from that perspective, even though we might have been focusing on the negative, climate change, or focusing on the pollution, we've in that sent out rockets of desire, millions, if not billions of us, to have a healthier planet. And so the universe delivered that to us, plunk, by this COVID thing. Now you think about another thing, injustice, racism, all of those things that so many of us have been wanting, a peaceful, kind, just society, even though we have maybe focusing on the negative, but that has sent us rockets of desire of finding ways to solve that. And so this virus lockdown and the subsequent events that have been happening seem like this incredibly, the universe has this incredible matrix, this beyond our even imagination, to be able to bring to us solutions that deep within us we're really calling for, individually and then collectively. And so that to me, part of the answer is to see that as the opportunity, and to see, rather than getting lost into the fear and the pushing against the change, and focusing again still more on what we don't want. But now's the time, as you guys are saying, taking the pause or whatever, to focus on what we do want to create, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're talking about defunding police and all that. To me, that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater completely. Okay, we may need to break some things down, right, almost to scratch, but we have some things that are working in our society. Let's look at those and how we can build on those. And so this is a great time to look at so many parts of our society, of our economy, of our environment, of our education system, of our health system, and of our spiritual system, because we've kind of, in that, when we talked about the busyness and everything, we've lost touch with who we really are. And we all are proponents of the idea that we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. I think, the people on this panel here all agree with that. And so if that's the case, if we can just remember that for a little bit, and then how would we, live our life as a result, and how do we do that collectively? So that's kind of what I think, is that there's this beautiful opportunity that the universe has brought, because we somehow, unconsciously or consciously, have been crying for change. And that, as the way through this, is to start to raise our consciousness, because we can't, as Einstein said, we can't create a solution from the same consciousness as a problem, right? So the pause allows us, for each one of us individually, to think of a new solution for ourselves, but also collectively to think of a solution for our planet, no matter what it is. And I believe there's going to be a lot other things coming down the pike at this time. So what are some of the most prominent things that have come out? Our health and welfare, the environment, the economy, we've racism and a just society. We've also seen in Canada seniors and how we're treating the most vulnerable. I think there's going to be a whole thing about children and how we protect children, and in trafficking and all this kind of stuff that hasn't come out yet. I believe that's going to be possibly the next wave that's going to come. These are things that and how we educate our children and raise children. These are all things that still haven't been fixed either, that are simmering underneath it, like this kind of, I see it like an earthquake, and with these plates coming together, and there's this big one, and then another shock, and all this stuff underneath has to come out. So that's kind of my perspective. Anyone else have any comments about that, or what anyone else has said? And just unmute yourself if you want to, because I think I just
I find there's been a lot before all this happened. There was a lot of talk about decluttering. People were on this big thing, and I'm still in the middle of it, of decluttering. And I think decluttering doesn't just happen or need to happen in our homes. And for me, up until recently, I've been focusing on decluttering my home. But it also works for thoughts. And also, again, with this pause, it's a way to declutter all the information that you've been carrying around during the chaos that we've had. It's a time to declutter those thoughts and again, start from scratch and say, okay, this hasn't worked for us. What do we need to do to change what we do when we moving forward from here? And it's like having a blank piece of paper for us to write, okay, how do we see the world in future? We say, we must often tell our clients where you sort of put your thoughts in a bubble, whatever you feel about somebody, and blow it away and let it go. It's in letting go of that declutter that kind of clouds your judgment and your perception and your discernment. When you get rid of that, you have the clarity of thought to generate something brand new.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love
Anyone
that.
else wanted to say?
Yeah. I love that, Doris, because I've been going through a huge shift myself. And it's a process. Everything in life, everything will reveal itself when you are ready, right? It's like, the master appears when the student is ready. And, so it's stuff that you read, it's stuff that you think in the front part of your brain. You think intellectually you know it because, you've read it. I've got a stack of books behind me, read them all. But what's really getting into the old noggin, right?
And in the heart,
so,
right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it was there, but was I really living it? So this week, on that point, Doris, I had a huge epiphany. And again, it seems so simple because all the answers in the universe are simple,
Mm-hmm.
right? They all are. The laws are simple. Everything revealed is simple. But we as humans make it so damn hard because our ego gets in the way, and and the intellect and the ego, and and what we think and what we should and what we've been told. But this week it was like, oh my gosh. So I've been struggling with trying to get off a few pounds for years. And I have spent thousands of dollars running around talking to everybody, seeing different naturopaths, going on different plans and, shakes and this and that. And it hit me, like seriously, yesterday, because of this pause that we've been in, time of reflection, time of decluttering thoughts, time of decluttering the house, getting rid of stuff, loving it. It hit me so profound. It was like, oh my God, the answer is within. The answer is just here.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I running around asking everybody else what they think when I have the answer?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been awake since 3:00 this morning, sitting in bed, going, okay, so body, sweetheart, what do you need? What's the answer? What's the answer? Show me the answer. And my body whispered back, just love me. And I went, oh my God, that's so profound. So, it's a simple answer. Love yourself the way you are right now. So, hopefully what's happening in the world with this shift and, is that we're coming back to center and we're going within. I think each of you said the same thing, that when you go within and you ask the questions and you listen, you pause long enough, you get out of the chatter, she answers. And she said, just love me. Wow. I thought, okay. So I've spent like 10 years and how many thousands trying to lose weight when I just had to ask her. So, but it's right. Oh, Sharon's saying something. What's that, sweetie?
I said you had to be ready to hear that.
That's it. Right. Because I kept thinking the answer was that I want you, the specialist, to tell me what I have to do.
Right.
But, when nothing's really working, it's obviously like, everything, our bodies are just a physical manifestation of what's going on in our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And Sharon, I know you know that because I saw you about 10 years ago talking even about weight back then. And, and you live that, and you're great at that, of getting to the core of, well, what's your predominant thought? What are you thinking? How are you serving yourself? So when we can just kind of connect our whole world, back to, how are we perceiving that world? How are we judging that world? How are we judging ourselves? Right? Everything is just a reflection back in the mirror to us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a pretty profound night. I was like, okay, I love me as I am today, and just watch those pounds just fall off me now.
I love it.
New diet plan, right?
New diet plan. And it's so simple, but it's not. These things are not always easy. Same with meditation,
Exactly.
whatever. Simple, but not easy.
Exactly.
So it's if you love yourself and you love your body, you wouldn't put cheese whiz in it. Everyone knows
Right.
I'm a cheese alcoholic. I gotta announce it here. But there's, you might once in a while have a piece of cake, but you wouldn't, when you're feeling down,
Right.
do those kind of things, or overindulge in drugs or alcohol or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
But one of the things that's interesting too, what's happening, sorry, I'll let you talk for a second, Sharon, is just that what I noticed is there had been a great number of discussions and people out there talking about what you said, Sherry, which is the connection between our thoughts and our mind and our body. And, Louise Hay started that way back. That was for the Western world. I'm sure, societies have known that forever and ever. But, we started to understand it. And there was there were a lot of conversations around that. And Sharon, you're a big leader in this. And I felt that with COVID, it's like, because it was so wrapped in so much fear, we weren't going to take that chance that maybe our thoughts and our emotions or whatever were connected to whether we would contract the disease or not, or whether we had a healthy immune system. Let's forget all that stuff now. Let's just go to, really vilifying that this is a virus and it has to be attacked, and it's the way that we look at so many things. We have to overpower it rather than recognize virus is part of our natural way of living in our society for way before we existed, and our immune system, all these things. But we've just forgotten about that. I don't know, Sharon, you want to talk a little bit about that? This is not my area, but it just seems so bizarre how much we've changed in the last few months.
I love what you said there, that yes, viruses have been around for billions of years. It's part of our template, right? And here we are, we're like, oh, we got to stop this virus in its tracks, as if we can.
As if we can.
As if we can. This virus, or any viruses make their way organically around the world. So was it brought by a plane? Yeah, it could have been. However, it probably would have made its way all around the world anyway, organically, because it's a part of our living world. It just is, right? And the places where it came out the most, so Wuhan and New York and Northern Italy, are places that had a lot of toxins, and especially in the air, right? So like glyphosate and Roundup, that started about the end of the 1990s and 2000, where we started pumping that in, right?
Into our food system.
Sorry?
Into our food system, right?
Yes, exactly. And it gets dispersed in the air as well. And so it's incredible that, they said, oh, in China, so the masks and the social distancing stopped the virus, right? But what happened is everybody was pulled indoors so that the environment could heal itself and come to a higher vibration and move out some of those toxins, right, that are very detrimental to our health and well-being. Very detrimental. So the universe, as you said, is getting, not only are we getting a reset, our environment, but we are one as the microcosm, as the macrocosm, and we are one with nature and environment, and we've separated ourselves as if we're separate. But even the medical system, we're separate. Right? And it's like, if you have a heart problem, you go to a heart doctor, but then you tell the heart doctor, but I'm having digestive problems. And he goes, oh, I can't help you. You must go to a different kind of doctor. Right? And so we've separated medicine. And when we separate out things, we are disconnected more and more from the whole, or oneness. And oneness, the organism, and the earth is an living, breathing organism, as we are. And when we start to separate parts of ourselves, or ourselves from nature, right? A very wise spiritual teacher of mine once said, your relationship to nature is directly your relationship to your body. Right? And it's so very true. It's so very true. And then you were talking, Sherry, about, Are we kind and loving to our body and to ourselves? And what kind of messages? We are made up, this vessel is made up mostly of water, and water holds energy and information and messages, right? And so what kind of information and messages are we sending this vessel and this body that is holding on to that information and only wants to please us? So if you say, I hate your fat thighs, I hate you that you have a double chin, I hate you, that is what, your body is like wants to please, and it's like, okay, I have a fat chin, okay, I have this, okay, I have that. And so what is the development? And Masaru Emoto, I don't know if you've seen his book, and his beautiful photography of the cells that are frozen. So he has a group of people sending beautiful messages to this vessel of water saying, I love you, playing Tchaikovsky, and you are the most beautiful thing. And you see they're like the most symmetrical snowflakes, beautiful, each with their own unique flair. And then you take this heavy, this music of all the swearing that the kids were listening to, and saying, I hate you, and you're ugly, and you're fat. And then these snowflake-like figures are turned in on themselves, and they have no symmetry. And so that's what's happening. And when we do that in our water structures, right, we're also creating the hormones that will atrophy our body and have us age much quicker, mm-hmm. right? And take out that vibrancy and vitality that we all really want.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, really beautiful.
Right?
Doris, did you want to say something? I look like you might want to add something to that.
Yeah, they've done the same test with plants, and they put two separate plants in a college, and they had the kids go up to the one plant every day and send messages of love and caressing and really talking to the plant. And then the other plant in the same vicinity, they're just right next to each other, but that plant got all the hate and the division and the anger, and the plant started rotting and dying. And when we put that out there, and this is what's happening right now is, I think the powers that be, whoever they may be, are creating all sorts of scenarios, what you guys say, and I say scenarios, to create even more division. And it's separated. You've got the people saying, yeah, on this side, and then yeah, on that side. And me personally, at one stage, it was, well, I kind of know what the left was saying, and I kind of know what the right was saying, but I don't know if I agree with everything about them. And I've always thought, and Lianne and I have this conversation quite often, we've got to have the pendulum swings and this, and I wanted to take back the middle road, but that also didn't sound right. And it was only when I went back to basics and listened to Eckhart Tolle, and he spoke about the triangle. So yes, we have one side on the left and one side on the right, but it's not to say that either one of them are right or wrong, but then you've got to detach yourself and look at it not from the middle, but from a higher perspective. And when you look at that from the higher perspective, it's kind of, you don't really get triggered by either one or the other, because you allow them to just be what they are without you putting your thoughts on it to make you feel angry or divisive. So when you look at it from, and thank you for this, Lianne, when you look at it from, well, yes, let's look at it from a higher perspective. It takes away that charge, and you're able to get to almost neutralize and get more clarity in the situation, whether it be I agree or I don't agree. It's, well, let's just see what happens. People might say, well, it's like putting your head in the sand like an ostrich. Well, maybe I'm an ostrich, but for now it's working for me,
I don't think it's an ostrich, because you're actually looking at whatever the division is, right? Left or right. I mean, there's, we can say blue eyes, green eyes. I mean, humans can find ways to divide ourselves. It's amazing, the craziness, how we divide ourselves. To me, it just blows me away. But I think that part of this whole awakening is revealing a lot of the divisiveness that is inherent right now in the consciousness of our society, which is very, very divided. And I think, again, there's this desire to get to a higher level of more oneness. And I think that part of oneness is being able to see not half and half, which I think of as the middle way. Maybe that's not what people think, but more of seeing the whole, and seeing how the whole is perfect for whoever is seeing it from one perspective and perfect for the other. You know, you can kind of use the analogy. You go into a dark room, everyone's invited, and there's a big, nobody knows what there's, and they've never seen one before. There's a big elephant in the room. This could be a metaphor, right? And so they're all blindfolded and they touch it. They've never seen or never heard of an elephant. And one touches the tail, one touches the nose, one touches the ears. Everyone's going to have a different perspective of what that elephant in the room is, right? And that's like reality for everything. There's very few real truths in this world, right? So when we can actually see the whole game, you know, that's being played with the elephant in the room and everything like that, we go, oh, the person who's touching the tail, yeah, that makes perfect sense for that person, that they're saying that and seeing it from that perspective, because we're seeing more of the game, right? And then, oh, the person who touched the trunk, who said it's this kind of thing, it's a hose, it's not an animal, it's a hose or whatever. Go, yeah, that makes total sense. But then as we raise our consciousness, as the light kind of rises in the room, and each one who's holding a trunk and a tail go, oh, there's more to this. Wow, this is much greater and more exciting than I thought, right? And so then they start to see that grander view. And I think that there seems to be, whether it's intentional or part of the fabric of the universe and the way things are structured, there tends to be there's a tendency to keep the lights down, you know, so that we don't want to see. And by pitting ourselves against each other, and trying to convince the person with the tail that the trunk is the way to go, it just keeps us in the dark. It doesn't allow the lights to come on at all, you know? And so I think that's what's happening now. We're like, we don't have a choice. The lights are going on, and some of us want to hold on to that damn tail, and the other one's onto the trunk, you know? And some of us are going, wow, this is kind of cool. Maybe there's maybe there's feet here I didn't even notice, or other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about comfort zone as well. We often talk about comfort zones, and it's when we stay in our little bubble, and with the tail as well as the trunk, and you think, well, okay, so if I just step out of my comfort zone and just look at it from another perspective, because there's always another perspective, but we always get so bogged down in our beliefs and what we believe, and it's kind of, we believe it must be this way. But if we open ourselves up to listen to somebody else's perspective, because we all have our own truths. Mm-hmm. You know, say, well, I want to know the truth. Well, okay, whose truth? Because mm-hmm. everybody has a different truth. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it comes from a higher perspective. Is, okay, that's your truth, that's your truth. What's my truth? What do I need to believe in order to lift me up and pull the people around me, well, not pull them around me, but encourage them to join me in this, well, let's take time to look at this differently. Maybe there's another possibility that I haven't thought about. Let me listen to your side. I might not agree with you, but let's at least listen. Maybe there's just something that, you know, that little seed that you plant and walk away. Maybe 5 years later, that person says, oh, that's what she was meaning. And I know because it's happened to me.
Exactly. Well, I was going to say vice versa, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love my comfort zone. You know that. Yeah.
I know, I'm not taking you out of it. Sharon, you want to say something?
I wanted to say, I was just thinking about, why do we hold on so tight? You know those things that really press your button before you even know it, you're there, right? And you're like, shit, I've gone there again. Right? So like, what is that? So I really think those are the things that we identify with. You know, when someone really gets you in that place, right? So if somebody, let's just say, I'll give you an example of, you know, I think I'm a loyal friend, right? And that's part of my story. And someone says, you know, I don't think you were really a good friend at all, really. I'm so sorry to tell you, but no, and you really, I'm not happy and I don't want to talk to you. Whoa. So something, you know, that's something so deep that right away I feel that there's this reaction to, and what I want to do, or what we want to do is justify, right? But wait a minute, I got to justify that I really am, and I really, because it's touched something deep in me, that I have a lot invested in my story, right? And it's also like, you know, I have 30 years of study invested in being a naturopath. And so if someone challenges and says, no, what have you, you know, that could also, but look, you know, I have all these degrees. And so I think the place where we get the most charge is really those things that we've invested a lot of energy. It's solidly part of our story. It makes us feel like we're enough. Also, what are those things that make us feel that we're enough? You know, I'm a good this, a businesswoman, a mother, whatever it is, right?
I love that conversation, and I wonder if someone else wants to kind of take a ball here, Sherry, because there's
yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, I hear you, Sharon. You know, all of that, of course, as we know on this panel, is ego based, and every time we go into reactive mode, that's ego. Right? When we go into response, that's the soul. And she whispers, whereas ego yells. Right? And we do spend a lot of time in the ego because we've been, as a society, we've been kind of taught and geared that way. That's sort of our dogma, you know, our indoctrination. It's, you know, you go to school and you do this and you do that. And so you kind of have to stand up for yourself, and you have to get those degrees, and you have to kind of prove your worth. But depending on what your story is, you know, and maybe what your beginnings are, maybe you never feel like you're enough. You know, I spent most of my adult life acquiring all kinds of certifications because I didn't feel like I was enough. You know, so what is that all about, right? So it's about undigging and digging down through the rubble. And it's at what point do you surrender to your soul and just say, I don't care what the outside world is now saying to me. If I can look in the mirror, you know, and this kind of goes back to my earlier point about really, and you know, we know, again, intellectually, all roads lead to self-love. That's where ultimately, you know, I look at life sort of as that Mario Brothers game, right? You know, where we're being shot at and we have to jump, and then we got to get to different levels, and we're shot at and there's fireballs coming at us. So that's life throwing its shit at us, right? And we're jumping, we're trying to get to the next level because we're trying to level up. You know, we want to raise our consciousness. We want to become better human beings. And ultimately, what is Mario Brother all about? It's to save the princess. You know, so that's saving ourselves. So when we can look in the mirror and say, wow, okay, with all your flaws, but also all your gifts, everything, and your, you know, and your rolls and your bigger tummy and your wrinkles, I love you. And thank you. It's like, wow, I've arrived. So it's, you know, it's to help women, everybody, you know, on the planet get to that point, because when you can look in the mirror and no longer judge yourself, it's magical, because now you're not judging others. Right? The people who judge the most are those that are judging themselves. And we've all experienced that. Just yesterday, I was in a lineup at Costco, and the woman behind me, she's like, oh, look at that. I know that woman. She's a healthcare worker. And why is she bringing her children in here? She should know better. And I turn around and say, like, shut up. You don't know anything about this woman. Maybe she's got no one to take care of her kids. Maybe she's scared and paranoid to bring them in. Or maybe she's just playing from a higher light, which is this conversation about you do not invite in the fear. Because where you focus your attention, your energy is going to go. So law of attraction is a law, as you know, you said, Lianne. So it is a law. If you're focusing all your attention on the fear of, oh my God, what if I get the disease? What if I get it? What if I get it? You're going to get it. You're going to get it. So stop focusing on it. Just say, no, I know that I'm surrounded in a, you know, beautiful healing light. And even if I get it, even if I do, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. And everybody I love is going to be okay. So put your attention there. So yeah, great points.
Yeah, I agree. Doris, did you want to say something? All right.
Yeah, I just want to go back to what if, if we have to look at what if everything that's going on right now is exactly as it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's no changing it. There's nothing you can do except go with it, go with the flow, and just there's things that each of us have to learn from everything that goes on into our lives, and this is one huge learning curve for the world. And I just, yeah, it's like you said, Sherry, where energy goes where your thought flows. It's kind of, when we bring that kind of stuff in our life, I know when I have down moments, when I'm aware enough, and that's what you'll work towards, when I'm aware enough to say, okay, I have these thoughts going on in my head. What's it doing? What are these thoughts doing to my body? So do I want to heal my body? Yeah. Okay. So what do I have to do? I need to change my thoughts about what's going on with my body. And I'm big for this. Before it was, whatever you fear or anything that's dark, you resist it. And it's in that resistance that causes even more pain. It's in accepting, and I was listening to a talk just earlier, and it's loving what's going on with your body, whether it be good or bad. It's loving what it is and accepting what it is and letting it do what it needs to do to correct itself. Because you all know the body can. You cut yourself. You don't go to the doctor all the time to get an ointment. The body heals itself. But it's our thoughts that's stopping those instructions from our brains to our nervous system that's stopping that healing, because it's those limiting beliefs and those negative thoughts that we have that stop our body healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So get rid of those damn thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. I really resonate with what you guys are saying. And, there's so many things that have come up for me with what all of you are saying. And if I could kind of try to encapsulate it a little bit, is that I see that all of us come from one consciousness. This is the all that's decided to express itself in as infinite different ways, right? And in the infinite way, one way is coming on this planet and forgetting that it is part of one. That's a whole experience unto itself. And there's a beautiful template called an ego that we acquire when we come here, so that we, one, forget to think of ourselves as separate, because that's the only way we can experience that that I'm not Sharon and Sharon's not me and Sherry. That's the only way we can experience it. We have an ego. It's a beautiful thing. But it also keeps us from sometimes forgetting that we are part. And I think part of our journey is to remember, because the beauty of remembering and coming back to that is just like awe-inspiring, right? It's just like so incredible. And that's kind of part of our process. And so I think that as we talked before about moving towards oneness. Oneness is remembering that we all are part of one, moving back to that, but also with the perspective that we still are individuals. We still have that uniqueness, each one of us. And when we can have that perspective, it's really cool. And it comes to that idea that I love so much, is the fractal. The fractal idea is that the individual part of something whole reflects the whole. So our cells are fractals of our whole body. It has the information for our whole body. And we see that throughout nature all the time, right? So each one of our consciousness are a fractal for the larger collective. And I think that what's happening so much right now is that it's like the individual is feeling the desire for oneness. So we've been separated. We feel the pain of the separation. The ego kind of gets a little bit amok because we don't feel that sense of worthiness. So we identify with things that help us to feel worthy. I feel like a good friend, so I can feel more worthy, because inherently I'm feeling separate. And I know that's not my true nature. But the ego is there to protect me, to play the game. And so that I do that, and then I feel like unworthy. I'm desiring more connectedness, right? And so each one of the individuals within the collective is feeling that, and we're crying out for it consciously or unconsciously. And then what happens is the universe plays it back to us. It plays us back as COVID. Where is it affecting us in our heart, our lungs? What does that reflect, in the body? It's our grief, our sadness, right? Our sadness of separation. And then what is one of the biggest things that's happening on the planet right? Well, then we had to go into lockdown, separate us, had to be 6 feet apart. We had to wear masks that separate. We can't see one of the most important part of our human body, which is our smile and how we interact with each other, creating more separateness. And then what happened with George Floyd, and then the separateness of races that happens, right? So there's this kind of this tension around separation, because I think that's what's really needing to heal right now, you know, on an individual and collective level.
So interesting how it's brought us exactly to that point. Lianne, yeah, so well said. That you know, those of us who are aspiring to be more highly evolved, or you know, tapping into that collective consciousness, we feel that oneness. And yet, what's been playing out in the world is, you know, putting up a wall between the U.S. and Mexico, and you know, the separating everybody out, and the us's and the them's, and you know, this political camp against that political camp, and religions, you know, play it out. So it's really interesting that this disease, this virus, I should say, is playing out exactly to that. It's like, okay, so you've all been playing this separate game, so I'm going to show you. Now you're all going to be separate, and you're all actually going to look the same, because aren't we kind of walking around looking like bandits from like the cowboy days, when, you know, we're gonna steal from the trains, and right, you know, and I get angry when I see that, because it's just so like, oh, it's shutting us down. Yes. You're so right, Lianne. You know, it's removing that oneness. You know, where a smile is like one of the friendliest things you can do, especially when you get to the cash, and you know, the cashier is so tired at the end of their shift, and you give them a smile and you ask them about their day. So yeah, interesting. So it's like, okay, so now we got to play on other methods, other ways of crossing that barrier, which is now becoming a universal sort of truth.
And it becomes so strong that it's in our face so much. Eventually, it's like a balloon ready to burst.
Yeah.
And it's bursting.
Exactly.
On separation of racism. It's bursting on all left and right. You know, it's bursting
huge.
on different seams. You know, and it's bursting on the generation. You know, millennials versus, you know, it's happening on all these different areas, right? And the separation.
It sure
Sharon,
is.
sorry, you wanted to say something.
Really.
I jumped in there. Thanks, Sharon.
I feel like in our society, we've been like this, you know, kind of holding everything to our systems together, the financial, the educational, you know, the medical haven't really been working that well. So it's just like this. And now that's the tipping point. And I think this has been, we knew this was happening. Something was going to happen. We didn't know this. The only other way that the world has been shut down was through war, and so we didn't know it was going to happen like this. But we knew, you could feel the buildup that something was going to happen, right? And so I feel that it has been time for our systems to totally come down and crash for a long time. It must do that to be rebuilt. The systems must crash. It may not be easy for a while, because it takes time to fall down and it's like, I think of it like we're in the chrysalis now, right? So we're the caterpillar, and so the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, or into the cocoon, and completely turns to liquid mush. And it recreates itself through the vaginal cells to be this beautiful butterfly and come out as something completely different, and we don't know yet what that's going to be, because I really feel we're still in the cocoon, at least till the winter solstice. I feel, from what I feel and what I've heard. And so now it's a time for all of us to have deep reflection. And like you said at the beginning, what are we imagining? You know, these imaginal cells, it's amazing. They call it the imaginal cell. What are we imagining? What are we willing to imagine? And in our culture, we're so programmed to don't ask for too much, don't think too much, don't think too big. And, you know, let's start to have a conversation for possibility. But as we start to have that conversation, it's like, no, that'll cost too much money. No, that doesn't make sense. It's not rational. But we need to like screw the rationality and take the lid off it and really have a conversation for possibility, because truly I believe that this universe has no limits, and it's only us that have limited ourselves over how many millennials have we done that. And now it's time to imagine, way beyond our imagination. And I love what you said, Lianne, about that, we are aspects of divine splitting off in our uniqueness, right? And because how great is that if we actually listen to each other and say, wow, give me your unique perspective, because you know what? We are born in a particular time and space. No two people could be born in the exact same time in the exact same space, which gives you your uniqueness. So if you imagine that you're in a sphere and you're born on this part of the sphere and I'm born on this part of the sphere, I can never see what you see from this part of the sphere ever. Right? But if I could be like, wow, tell me, show me what you see from this kind of the sphere, and we could all gather together and go, that is so incredible. That is so beautiful. I could have never seen that from my perspective, right? Instead of trying to hold on to my perspective, then who knows what's possible when we all come together. And I think that it's time for communities to come. I remember in my grandparents' and great-grandparents' days, I have so many pictures of them living in community, supporting each other. If they didn't have enough money to have a lot of food that week, the neighbor would bring over food and cook for you, and you lived in a community. It's time to come back. We went all secular, and you went your way, I went my way in my little house and doing everything. No, I could do it on my own. Thanks. I'm tough and I'm strong, and I can handle it. But it's time to come back into community and listen, and not only listen, but be excited about each other's unique expression in the world, and support everybody to shine your light, your brightest light, with your own unique. I believe everyone's come here with their own unique gifts and talents to be shared in this world. And I think all the people who are here in this particular time, which is a incredible time in history, we signed up. We went, me, I want to be here now. I want to be here for this time of awakening. Mm-hmm. Right? It's so exciting. And I wanted to also add to what you said, Lianne, about like the grief and the lungs and what have you, and what they're seeing when they went deeper into this virus is this is a virus that creates hypoxia, or lack of oxygen. Mm-hmm. Lack of oxygen is your vital force, right? And a lot of it is so connected to the toxicity that we unconsciously have created, right? And so it's about, and I think it was Doris, you talked about clean up and let go, right? And it's so much about cleaning up inside. So this started in a time of the spring. Spring is major cleansing time. Mm-hmm. Clean up the liver, right? Clean up your livers. There's so many great things that we need to do. It's easy to do that. And it helps to release a lot of anger and frustration that we may be holding through this. So, lemons and limes, apple cider vinegar, greens, lots of water, movement, clean up, not on your environment and your whatever, but clean up your bodies, take care of them. And release old patterns and beliefs that aren't serving you. And if you have a hard time doing it, then reach out. There's so many people that can help you with amazing tools.
I think thank you. The symbology of the breath is so right now, and I'm not sure everyone's kind of grasping it, but you think about
right?
So you've talked about the disease.
Expression center.
Right.
Expression center.
Yep. So you've got the disease that affects the breath, and the breath.
The virus.
The disease, sorry, the virus that affects the breath, and how much that's everything in our life, right? And then you think of the planet and how we've cut down our lungs of the planet all over, all the trees and everything like that we need to replenish. And then, as you said, the pollution inside of that, right? And then as you're saying, that we're then masking ourselves, taking our breath away, and there's like this symbology. And then what happened with George Floyd was his breath was taken away. And then what are people screaming? I can't breathe. Like, there's this incredible synchronicity that's happening all over that's saying, we need to get our breath back. We need to get back to nature. We need to breathe again. We need to be able to vocalize. We need to be, that prana, that important part of who we are. We're losing that.
Speech. Yes.
Exactly. And it's like everywhere we look, it's the symbology that things are happening is like these are all connected. It just seems so like blows me away when I see that, But the cleanup too, I think that to come back to that over and over, to me also the cleanup is, as you've mentioned, in your food and you've mentioned in your home, it's in, and I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, Sharon, also in your agenda, your schedule, that's what we've been forced to do, but that's kind of an important part. If we're too busy, we don't have the time to eat properly. We don't have the time with our family. We don't have the time to declutter our house or anything like that. So, and that's one of my biggest challenges, to declutter my schedule. But each one of us has our own challenges of what we need to be working on.
Yeah.
But, it's really interesting.
And how could you go out and make a difference out there if you're suffering in here and you don't feel well and you're tired and your cells are bogged down? It's really difficult to go out and do that. We need to take care of this. This is the one temple, the vessel that we have for our spirit in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
In order to shine our brightest light and to share our gifts in the world, and we need to be healthy and well.
So maybe that could be the last thing. Okay, I'll get, just because we got a few more minutes, maybe 10 minutes or so, is just to talk about that, like kind of what are some of the things we can do. And maybe, you mentioned, Sharon, and I'll pick up later on, but I like other people to chime in, is just the imagining of what's possible, and the fact that each one of us are individual and have our own unique purpose and our own unique gifts to bring to the solutions. And there's so many challenges in the world, and there's so many possible solutions, right? And so maybe we can talk a little bit about, what can we do? What are the things that you're doing to help yourself through this, or maybe other things that are going to be coming down the pike? If maybe from that perspective of imagining what's possible rather than focusing completely on what's wrong. Doris or Sherry? Yeah, Doris. Yay!
And right in the beginning, talk about scheduling and things like that. I spent, and I've been doing a lot of it again recently, is I spent the first 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks seeing and embracing the gifts of the virus. But when I had my meltdown, I forgot all about that. It was more about the heaviness. And the minute I reminded myself, I thought, okay, so let's look at what the gifts of the virus has given us. Families are coming together closer. They're spending more time. In fact, big families have decided to quarantine together so that they're not separate. It's all these wonderful things. We all have to take a step back and say, okay, where do we go from here? So it's made us think. There's so many gifts, and I think if we focus on the gifts rather than everything else, it brings a whole new energy and a new vibration that we give off to people, and they see it. They feel it because you're feeling it, and it has this ripple effect. And I just think if we focus on the gifts, I think we're doing pretty well.
Nice. Sherry, what do you think?
I think it's a real opportunity to step in and embrace our uniqueness, we are snowflakes, Dr. Emoto's work. I love Dr. Emoto's work. Yeah, and I teach it with women too. That the effects of our words on our bodies and the environment. I've healed myself from gallstones. I've got a whole story I could talk about that. And I did it through physical, and then at the end of it, it was the mind mastery. It comes down to how do we walk this planet? How do we honor ourselves? How do we honor our neighbors? I started a group 3 years ago now that I call the Kindness Cafe for the women in my area, the women that had retired, and nobody was coming out into the street. So back to community. A lot of us, many of us, for the last maybe 20, 30 years, turned our back on religion. But what we lost with that is the community. So church wasn't just about religion. It was about coming together once a week, having a coffee maybe in the church basement, going back to families' homes after and having, a piece of cake and a coffee, whatever. We lost that. So the kids today, especially, but even our generation of, the 50-year-olds and the 60-year-olds, we're kind of floundering, and we've been working as career women, and now we're kind of locked indoors and we don't know our neighbors. So 3 years ago, when I started the Kindness Cafe, I went and knocked on people's doors, and we're a group of about 12 people. We get together once a month, and people who had lived next door to each other for like 30 years didn't know each other. And like 6 houses down, they didn't even know their names. So, I encourage people, start this in your community, because community is so important. And so it breaks down those walls, but we're so conditioned to be in the four walls of a home, four walls of a city, four walls of a province, four walls of a country. Like, we are kept small. But to every point that we've made here tonight, which I think is phenomenal, it's about the oneness. And I think this is really bringing in everything. And this virus has shown on a global scale of how the world is coming together. The scientists are coming together to find a cure. Everybody's come together, with commonalities and shared interests and shared respect to keep the citizens safe. And so I see that we're going to go great places if we can keep this in the forefront of where we're headed, and using those imaginal cells. And I love that about the butterfly too, Sharon. I use that in a lot of what I talk about as well. But, some of the cells, they're like, oh, like, that's it, I got to give up because I'm turning to mush, and right. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to die now. And they're all like, bah. But then you got the other imaginal cells are going, yippee, I'm going to turn into something great. Right. So it's like, let us all harness the imaginal cells, because, oh my God, we're going in great places. It is not over by no means. Are you kidding me? We are going to flourish. We're just going places. So that's my wrap up.
I love it. Excellent.
Thanks.
And what about you, Sharon?
I think it's really important in these times. I mean, I agree with everything everybody said. Beautiful, beautiful ladies, really. I feel just how you feel. I think we are going to flourish out of this. It may take a little bit of time, and that's okay, but band together with people that you trust, with people that you honor, that people you could really talk to. And find someone you could really talk to in those tough moments, because there may be some, and I had some last week, so doesn't matter if you've been working on yourself for 30 years, there may be those tough moments, right? And I can attest to that. So I think you too. I think it's really important now to keep ourselves grounded and use our tools. Grounding is so important. There is a movie called Grounding, or The Grounded, something like that. I don't exactly remember. But take your shoes off. Go outside. Connect with the earth. Put your back on the trees. You will get this incredible electromagnetic field moving up your body that will ground you. In those moments when you're all over the place and you're in fear and you're listening to the media, turn off the media, please. I was visiting my dad the other day. I do not listen to the media. It's been 20 years probably. I feel whatever I need to know, people will tell me. And he was listening to the news, and he's half deaf, so it was really, really loud. And they were talking about, oh my God, there's like more than ever in Pennsylvania. And he's saying, you see, there's more than ever. And I was doing a treatment, a cranial treatment on his wife. And in that moment, I felt my whole nervous system go out of balance. And I felt like, this is not okay. And I said to my dad, turn off the media, because what it's doing to your nervous system, it's creating all these stress hormones. So do what calms you. There are many tools: meditation, visualization. And if you don't know how to do it, Google it. There's thousands of people. Find a voice that calms you. Listen to that. One great tool is emotional freedom technique, or EFT. You can go on YouTube. There's an 8-minute video with Gary Craig, the founder. It's a wonderful way to do self acupressure and breathing to release all the stress and anxiety. If you have moments of that, use it. Yoga's wonderful. Walking is fabulous. Connect with the earth and the trees and nature. Exercise. Your lymphatic system, we talked about detoxing and letting go. It's really important to keep your lymphatic system, which is your garbage disposal, moving. Breathing. Breath, if you're out of the moment, you are freaking out about something that happened or will happen, use your breath. Deep breathing, low in your abdomen, to get you back in this moment. Healthy eating, grounding foods. So those are easy things that grow in Mother Earth and on Mother Earth will be the most grounding. And gather like-minded people, right? That you can have good, honest, truthful conversations, people who will have compassion and love for you if you're trying to cultivate more love and compassion for yourself. Blessings.
Wow, beautiful. Really beautiful. And I also agree with everything that you've all said. And what I would just add is that as you're turning off the mainstream media and doing, tapping into inner wisdom, and we talked about that before, but to have a practice of it, so that, because people don't necessarily know, they might meditate, or they might try dabble in meditation. I hear all the time people say, I can't do it, it's too hard. It's one of those things that's very simple but not easy. And if you can only do it for a minute or two to start a day, that's actually a great way to start. But as you start to tune in little by little, those 2 minutes may become 10 minutes, maybe 15. It starts to clear the mind, and then inspiration comes through. The deeper, like exactly what Sherry was saying, where she listened to her body. I think all of us have our practices, and we hear from our guides, from our subconscious, our inner knowing. There's so many different ways to do it, but when we can cultivate that inner knowing, then when we can look at everything that's out there, even the mainstream media and social media and what other people are saying and research, and we can look at it and take it all in, and then have discernment and say, is this true for me or is this not? Is this of my highest good and those around me or not? And then, but without that inner knowing, there's no contrast. We're just being pulled around constantly, right? Mm-hmm. And also part of that is cultivating a higher vibration. And so that's, through things like gratitude, play. You said, you talked about a lot of things in there, which you just mentioned, Sharon, being in wonder and nature, those kind of things, laughing, having fun, even being with like-minded, just having fun, all helps us to raise our vibration out of the lower states of, that unworthiness, the shame and guilt and apathy, almost like hopelessness. And then there's a little bit more power in the anger that fires us a bit, desire and anger, but then it gets into the pride, I'm stuck in my view kind of thing, and we need the courage to push us into more of the acceptance, and then the higher and higher levels of love and real wisdom. And so when we play physically, emotionally, energetically in that higher vibration, then we are attracting more. We're attracting more ideas and other people, and we feel great too, by the way. And so one of the, and the community, I can't say enough about you guys. I've already said that. I just think that's so important. And while there's communities of people maybe we might be helping, there's other communities that maybe help us, and maybe they're the same community, but they might be different. And that's something that I've kind of had to figure out for myself along the way. Some of the times I need a smaller group of people that I have to figure things out with, that that maybe the other community is more that I can help them with, and so on, right? But for me, one of the biggest things too is that purpose is our doorway. Our unique, we talked about our uniqueness, right? Our uniqueness, there's no two people like us on this planet, and each one of us have a purpose, many purposes, whatever, but that we're what wants to be birthed through us, what we're called to. And I think in this time, there's so many things, and there's a tendency to say, you have to look at this, you have to be the person that's out protesting against X, Y, or Z, whatever it may be, climate change, racism, whatever. But that's not necessarily true. There are each one of us have our own unique gifts and strengths and what calls us. And that's what we have to follow. Not because someone told us we should, because I may be really, my passion is really about helping others discover their passion and their purpose. And someone else might be to help make a more just world, and someone else may be to help children, and so forth. And we really need to honor and discover first, if we haven't figured that out a little bit for ourselves, it's an ever unfolding, but discover that a bit more and keep stepping into it and work on the things that block us from doing that, because that's what happens all the time. The money, I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail, and on and on and on, that stops us from taking those beautiful gifts each one of us have of light, and it doesn't have to be anything big, like I love what you were saying about the Kindness Cafe. It wasn't like you were trying to do 10,000 people, 12 people, but you change those 12 lives, and those people have families, and so on and so on. And so don't worry if it's one person, if we can bring our own uniqueness out and discover more about our uniqueness by doing that, and then discover, that's where our true bliss is, and where we have really transformed the world. So I've just loved this conversation. I hope we can do more. I hope people that are listening to this afterwards will enjoy it and reach out to us. I'll have all the links of all of your websites. And any other last comments or anything before we close off for the evening?
I just wanted to jump in and thank you, Lianne, for organizing this. And I love you women. Sharon, Doris, Lianne, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And I was going to say the same. Thank you for just connecting. It warms my heart that we can have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I hope a lot of people are having these conversations, these honest conversations that really bring out the best of us, the best in us, right? And that we can gather and share with each other and our uniqueness. And thank you for facilitating this, Lianne, as you do it so beautifully all the time.
Thank you. And, it was Magenta Pixie that also said, before, I will let you go, Doris, but just, she said there, to encourage other people. We saw them doing it, and they were encouraging other people to do it. And we can encourage others as well to have these conversations with people that you think that, could be that juicy conversation that can move the planet forward in our little corner, whatever that little corner is.
And even if you think you have nothing to say, just getting together with people that you're comfortable with, you may not even know what's going to come out of your mouth.
Yeah. We certainly didn't before we started, did we?
That's right.
Very true.
Doris, sorry I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. I also want to say thank you. And you ladies, I couldn't imagine a better group of women to have this conversation with. And if we're an example that inspires other people to do the same thing and get this dialogue going, have these conversations with the women around you, we've done what we had to do. Thank you, everyone, really.